In this video, I'm going to talk about the one thumbnail mistake that a lot of people make, and frankly, it's a topic that is under discussed in terms of how important it is in terms of a video's performance, right? And I'm not just talking about the thumbnail design. In this video, I'm going to talk specifically about the thumbnail text. How do you know what words to put inside of the thumbnail, right? If you were to look at this channel, Alex Hormozi, you can see that there are big text inside of the thumbnail. The 51-1 rule: you will suffer, graph, you them, start over, fix your offer, right? Pretty much every single thumbnail has some sort of text, right? Especially if you're doing an educational channel, right? If you're doing a faceless channel, there is also text inside of your thumbnail, right? There are, select formats of thumbnails that don't have any text, but majority of thumbnails, especially if you're doing some kind of educational content or even faceless content, has text, and no one really talks about how to optimize it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about exactly how I think through what text to put inside a specific thumbnail. So over here, how to write thumbnail text, right? So I've written a couple of rules here in terms of the thumbnail text logic to determine, hey, what words do we use and what words do we test with? So number one is you start with no text, right? So text is not the default whenever you are creating thumbnails, okay? The text must always be additive to the thumbnail that you're making. If the text that you have does not add to the psychology of the thumbnail or the curiosity that the thumbnail is creating, then there is no point in having the text, right? A good rule of design or a good rule of copywriting is to remove everything that is not essential. So if a certain text basically repeats the thumbnail, you can probably remove the text, and if the image is good enough, it will simply carry the entire packaging of the video, right? And it will still be able to get the click. So text is not the default. Only add text when the image alone does not fully communicate the hook. Okay, so only add text when it's additive. Okay, so text must earn its place. Okay, add text only if it makes the thumbnail clearer, more curiosity driven, and easier to understand at a glance, right? If the image already does that, you can completely remove the text. So over here, back to this channel over here, you can see if it just had a bunch of social media icons, right? It wouldn't have communicated that this video was going to be a 3-hour masterclass, or this video over here, right? $100,000 in text. If I wanted to make my first 100K in 2026, I do this, right? You want to think about other variations that you could have with this, right? You could have money in the background, or in this case, text works in his thumbnail. Or in this case, we want to communicate the rule, the money formula I use to actually get rich, the 51-1 rule. Okay, you can see over here, start over, right? So you can see that all of the text over here, adds some kind of curiosity and makes the image easier to understand at a glance, right? The text is very, very big. So for me, just sitting afar from my laptop, I'm still able to see the text very big, even though it's in this small, tiny square on my YouTube dashboard. So that's one of the things that you'll want to think about. Hey, how can I make this a lot easier to see? So there's that, right? You want to make sure that you have large, bold text. Number 3, keep it brutally short. Okay, a lot of thumbnail text mistakes comes from making the thumbnail text too long. Keep it 2 to 4 words max, right? 5 words max. If you need any more than that, that means the concept is probably too complicated, right? Because the goal of the thumbnail is simply to get the click, right? It's simply to get a high click-through rate, so a click from a high number of people and from the right people, right? If the thumbnail should attract the right audience. If it attracts the wrong audience, then there's no point if you get a ton of clicks. Your audience will still be poo-poo and you will hate your life growing your channel. So you want to keep your thumbnail text between 2 to 5 words, 2 to 4 words, 2 to 5 words, 5 words really max, because the thumbnail should be understood at a glance. If you look at a thumbnail at one glance and you have to spend some time dissecting it, then it won't work. Because how does YouTube work? Whenever a viewer comes onto the platform, basically they are in default mode. They're just scrolling to see what is interesting for them to click and what piques their curiosity or what can specifically solve their problem. And then they will click on that video, right? If the thumbnail does not actually communicate that, it's going to be very difficult in order to, get people or get the right people to, come to your channel. Okay. Once again, going back to this specific channel example, you versus you, the 51-1 rule, fix your offer, start over, you will suffer, right? You can see that a lot of it, millionaires work at level 4, 3-hour masterclass. It's easy. $100,000, right? How to win in business. All of it is max 5 words. So we want to keep with that rule as much as possible. Next, never restate the title. Okay. So thumbnail text should support the title, not repeat it. The title gives the full idea. The thumbnail text gives the sharper angle. So instead of repeating the topic, text should highlight one of the following. Okay. So it should highlight the outcome, the problem, the twist, and the proof. So you can see over here, right? This shows that it's a 3-hour masterclass. Okay. The 6 levels of making money, millionaires work at level 4. Okay, the money formula I used to actually get rich, the 51-1 rule. So money formula I used to actually get rich, and then when you read the title, you're like, okay, what is the rule? So it says the 51-1 rule. So you can see that the title and the thumbnail interact with each other, right? Because it talks about money formula and it talks about a rule, and then both of these create some sort of curiosity gap, and because they work together, right, they are actually related. So it took me 36 years to realize what I'll tell you in 26 minutes. And then it says you will suffer. So it's kind of like a preview of the exact thing that be showing inside of the video, right? So this is like a preview method, right? So it's showing the outcome. It's showing some kind of curiosity inside of the thumbnail text. So if the thumbnail text doesn't drive an outcome, show the problem or have a twist or have some sort of proof that will get people to click, because proof is important in some niches, then you probably don't want to do it. Okay. Next, it should have one message only. Okay. The thumbnail text should only communicate one core idea, right? Not the benefit and the mechanism and the proof all at once. It should only communicate one idea here, because if it communicates more than one idea, right, it's not communicating any idea, right? In the copywriting world, there's this thing called the big idea, right? So it's basically, when you have an essay or when you have a sales page or if you have a video sales letter, what exactly is the one thing that you want to communicate, right? If you're communicating too many things at once, if you're communicating more than one thing, people won't exactly remember what you are communicating. So think about what is the one message that you have inside of the thumbnail that people will want to come to click, right? And once again, the job of the thumbnail isn't to, tell the full story of the video. It should tell what the specific curiosity or what the main attractor of the click is. And then you just want to make sure that you validate the click inside the content of your video. Okay, cool. Number 6, mobile readability decides everything. Okay, so the text must be readable in about 1 second, or like half a second. All right, I would modify this to be half a second on a small phone screen. So if it feels even slightly small, crowded, or dense, the thumbnail text fails. So once again, must be readable at a glance. Next rule: designed for impact, not for decoration. Okay, so you want to use bold sans serif as a rule in terms of thumbnail text. You want to have high contrast. You want to have stroke and or shadow. So you can see in a lot of the thumbnail text, there is some sort of a shadow to make it stand out a little bit. And on the thumbnail, there's the rule of 3, right? 3 components and max 3 colors total. So the text should look strong and immediate, but never stylish and hard to read. A big thumbnail mistake is that people will design for cleverness rather than for clarity, when in reality, clarity is like the most important thing. Because if I look at the thumbnail and it's too crowded and there's too many words, I'm just not going to click on the thumbnail. Okay, so there's that. Number 8, place text away from the face, right? Your packaging rule is text left and face right. So the face is the primary attention anchor. Do not let text cover or compete with it. So this is for personal branding, right? If you can see over here, right, the text is in one of 4 places, right? Here it's at the bottom. Here it's on the left side of the thumbnail, left side of the thumbnail. Here's right side of the thumbnail, left side of the thumbnail, right side of the thumbnail. So you can see that the text is only centered in one spot. You don't have text like flying everywhere. If there's text flying everywhere, then it's going to be too crowded. It's going to be hard to understand at a glance, right? You can see over here that yes, there's like all of these parts that are blurred out, but on the top right, you can see like, hey, there's one profit over there, right? Or fix your offer, you versus you. So the text is front and center, right? You only have it in one place. So you want to make a rule for, hey, where you want your specific titles to be. Number 9. Okay, maintain visual hierarchy. So the order of importance in terms of a personal branding thumbnail and similar rules in terms of a faceless thumbnail is face, text, everything else. Face, text, everything else. Okay, and if it's for faceless thumbnail, it's image, text, and then everything else. So the text should help, the face, not empower it. So if you're using 2 text elements, use one big hook and one small qualifier, and never create a paragraph. So you want to keep it as simple as possible, and you want to think like, hey, is my face big enough, right? You can see once again in the Hormozi thumbnails, the face is always the biggest thing. The face is taking up, at least a third of the thumbnail, right? So the face is the thing that's front and center. Where when you look at this thumbnail, the very first thing that you see is the face. So the face is front and center, and then the rest of it follows. Those are the main thumbnail rules that, I make sure that I follow religiously, because really the way to really screw up your thumbnails is to deviate from the basic rules, right? Where a lot of people will get wrong, especially when they're starting channels, is that they will try to come up with some secret strategy and try to like quote unquote like break the YouTube algorithm. But really, there are just some simple rules that will make your life a lot easier if you were to follow some of these principles, right? Keeping the text short, 2 to 4 words, making sure that the thumbnail earns its place, never restating the title, always creating a curiosity gap, demonstrating the outcome, the proof, that will significantly make your thumbnail a lot more attractive and easier to understand. And I guarantee you that your videos will perform better. Hopefully this helps. If you want to try our subscriber thumbnail generator, you can click the link in the description. Get subscriber $7 for 7 days. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.